Introvert schizo is a hashtag mood or cheap plastic thoughts.
I have a thing about couples arguing. I have a thing about people not knowing what they want. I have a thing about listening to people cry. I have a thing about adults who feel themselves to be problem children.
There are things beneath you, a cheap plastic table, an unmade bed, viral thoughts that spread in your blood like wine, drugs, and hashtag mood. Cheap things you feel but cannot claim.
I have a thing about success as a yardstick that people beat themselves with. I have a thing about watching people fuck up their lives. I have a thing about people being disappointed in themselves. I have a thing about people who overshare and feel like idiots. I have a thing about sibling rivalry.
Shameless shame, your filtered life on Instagram, your girlfriend fancying your best friend, your desire to beat up both of them, your dead mother's sex life, your urge to fuck a random boy on public transport, dominating his delicate bones with your thumping cunt. These thoughts are all beneath you.
I have a thing about people not conquering their fears, but their fears conquering them. I have a thing about payday loans. I have a thing about people who say, my bad, and it's like, well, yes it was, and their faces don't look shocked. I have a thing about midlife crises. I have a thing about therapy disasters. I have a thing about people not achieving their goals.
Behave! You're sort of educated and somehow privileged, lucky, even hashtag blessed. Visceral violence is beneath you. Useless degrees in useless subjects, art and literature, ephemeral friendships, tedious romances are not beneath you. Books that no one else reads have been written for you. Carbs are beneath you. Being vile and drunk is beneath you. Smile!
I saw a guy pull up during a race, clutching his hamstring in agony, and I had a thing about it. I have a thing about people who doubt their own abilities with good reason. I have a thing about burnout. I have a thing about people feeling overwhelmed. I have a thing about when people cry in staff meetings. I have a thing about when their top lip goes all quivery.
You have everything. Your girlfriend screams and everybody else agrees. This weirdness, whatever it is beneath you. Why do you have to ruin everything for cheap feelings that are beneath you?
I have a thing about when people are exhausted and close to their limits. I have a thing about when people haven't prepared properly. I have a thing about lectures or poetry readings going really badly, even by the pitiful standards of lectures and poetry readings. I have a thing about people feeling persecuted. I have a thing about people feeling like they always get the raw end of the deal. I have a thing about success feeling out of reach because it is out of reach.
There are things you're not allowed to articulate. Your sympathies for convicts, communist dictators, your nostalgia for libertine cities that don't exist, embarrassing appetite for pop music, for hierarchical power are all beneath you. Jealousy is beneath you. It's a distant town in a country you're not allowed to love. But your social media sexy, be happy.
I have a thing about people for whom positive affirmation will never work. I have a thing about CVs as long as my arm. I have a thing about inferiority complexes. I have a thing about people who know themselves to be cowards. I have a thing for the crestfallen and dismayed. I have a thing about people who are always surprised by their inadequacies.
Wanting to be worshipped is a cheap plastic table, legs up in the air, piercing your skin, an ugly dagger. Your sexual attraction to your sibling is beneath you. Your lack of faith in anything other than your ego, your feigned intellect, your paranoia that you parade as passion. This paranoia, this poem is beneath you, holding you like a cheap plastic seat with wobbly feet.
I have a thing about people who will never really try through fear of failure. I have a thing about losing in unfortunate circumstances. I have a thing about people who inflate their successes because they aren't successes.
You swing your cold legs in the summer air pretending to enjoy the heat even though your specific skin can only feel cold and no heat. You pretend to sweat, to wear a little black dress, to celebrate. You listen, this is just another random party, but it hurts like a terrible poem, just another social commitment to abhor and attend. And you water your tree with alcohol and convince yourself you sound sane, and it's okay that all your interesting conversations happen inside your head.
I have a thing about people haunted by their own self-pity and regret.
Times like these, close your eyes and guide yourself to an empty bathroom. Fist the mirror like it's a blonde boy on public transport. Then slit your wrists.
I have a thing about unlucky as euphemism for not good enough.
Hashtag bleed.